Hi, everybody. Welcome to a Take It Tuesday webinar. I am Liz Downing. I am the Senior Manager of Partnerships and Events here at Takeometrics, and I have my friends Leslie and Lauren from Riverbend with me today. Y'all say hi.
Hey there.
Howdy.
And we're going to be doing a deep dive into Amazon policy. Amazon policy changes at the turn of something that turns really quickly. And it has ever since. I've been in the industry since 2014, and just watching the changes that have happened as Amazon has grown and evolved, and also so has policy had to grow and evolve. So we're going to do a little Ask Me Anything. Nobody prepared any slides. We're just going to dive in here and start digging in. I know we get a lot of questions at Takeometrics. We deal with advertising, but people will ask, how come this product isn't eligible for advertising? Why is my account suspended? Why is this ASIN not doing anything? So we're going to ask all those questions and get answers from Art. But first, why don't you two, because your backgrounds are super interesting, why don't you do a little intro of yourselves and tell me a little bit about your background and then a little bit about Riverbend?
Leslie?
Well, I think, I was going to say Lauren should go first because she's more interesting, but okay. So my name's Leslie Hensel, and I am co-founder of Riverbend Consulting. I've been a seller on Amazon since 2010. So I joke around that I'm like a grandma on the Amazon platform, not in real life, but on the Amazon platform because I've been around a while. And we started Riverbend about almost 6 years ago with my partner, Joe Zalta. And Joe is a seller. And I was doing some freelance work and got Joe reinstated when his account was suspended. So he came to me and said, okay, I'm like the salesy guy and you're the operations person. We should turn this into a company. So we did. And now Riverbend has about 85 employees, and we focus largely on account health. We have some other services we help with that are all the things people don't want to do, like answering customer service messages or dealing with negative feedback, FBA issues, feeds, that kind of stuff. But we're mostly about trying to keep your ASINs and account up and running. But now I'm going to throw it to Lauren, who's more interesting because she has what everyone wants, which is she worked at Amazon.
Did a 12-year bid working at Amazon. I started in seller performance as an investigator, so I was one of those people that send all of you sellers those love notes that tell you your ASIN or your account is down. I also read your appeals, and from there I moved on into several of their program management teams that actually helped write the investigation policies, write the actual policy that was seller facing, as well as training the investigators on how to interpret your information and make informed decisions about reinstatements or not. My focus was on authenticity.
And Liz, we have one more friend who just joined us who actually isn't Brianna. That's a fib. It's Kate Way, and she's also on my team. So Kate, can you just talk a little about yourself and your background?
Sure. So before coming to Riverbend, I was at Amazon directly in the seller support departments as an advisor within the brand registry and catalog departments. We specialized in brand registry, gating, and catalog issues like IIDP and feeds.
Awesome. That's so much great experience. I mean, I guess Amazon, there's a lot of black box to Amazon, and it's hard to understand unless you've been on the other side of things. So that's super valuable, especially when you're helping people kind of unravel the Gordian knot that is, maintaining a healthy seller account and making sure, sorry, somebody said, Brianna, I think Brianna's trying to watch from her phone, and she was like, I can't see their faces. So if one of our attendees could pop in the chat, we can see you. That would be helpful if you guys are listening. And also, please use the question section of GoToWebinar to submit your questions for this expert team. We already have some questions, so we'll get into that in just a moment. A couple other housekeeping items. This session is being recorded. We will email you, if you registered for this, we will email you the recording along with a link to a blog post that Leslie wrote for us that's on our website, takeometrics.com. But I was thinking about where to start because organizing questions, of course, everybody's asking the stuff that's like most burning on their minds right now. Thank you, Stephen. Stephen can see us. Thank you. So I was thinking, okay, do we start like at the ASIN level? Do we start at the overall account level and work our way down into the minutia? So I think let's do the latter. So let's talk about overall account health and the biggest things that can get you in trouble that can just make everything go all to HE double hockey sticks. So I know that when I was with Ecom Engine, we talked a lot about ODR because your order defect rate, if it's at a certain percent, you can just lose your whole account. So maybe we start there. Like what terrible levers can you pull to completely shut down your account, and how do you avoid those? And then we can get into the other headaches.
So right now, what we are seeing is some interesting refocusing of Amazon on issues that they actually had not seemed to be paying as much attention to for a while. So way back in the day, when I first started helping people whose accounts were suspended like 8 years ago, most of the suspensions were for inauthentic. And then when Amazon started suspending ASINs instead of whole accounts, then a lot of those inauthentic suspensions kind of went away. People were addressing them at the ASIN level and everything's fine. Now, all of a sudden, it's back. And so when people are not addressing those inauthentic ASINs that pop up in their account and they just let those things sit there, now they're having their accounts taken down again. And I think there was kind of some feeling like, oh, this isn't something I have to worry about so much. And nothing could really be further from the truth. Another thing that we're seeing come back, this is fascinating to me. So last year, if you looked at first quarter and second quarter, we were seeing a few suspensions every quarter for platform manipulation. Platform manipulation, there's so much bad information out there. People think, oh, I can ask for reviews if I just do it the right way, which there aren't really any good ways right now to ask for reviews. Also, people think that it's a great idea to put inserts in their products that say, give us a review and we'll give you a free product. We'll give you an 80% off discount, all that stuff. There's all these classes and groups that teach this. And so in the third quarter of last year, Amazon slowed down platform manipulation suspensions. And in the fourth quarter, we saw zero, none at all. We're like, what is going on? Well, it has come back with a vengeance. So now we're actually seeing double and triple the rate of those kinds of suspensions as we did this time last year. And here's the kicker, when you're asking about what can really hurt you, if you're suspended for this, they want you to remove all of your inventory and repackage without those cards. So imagine you're a supplement seller. This is who gets it most, right? So imagine you're a supplement seller. You've got 3 or 4 ASINs at the FCs, and you've got to literally pull out thousands and thousands of units and repackage it all. And then you know the trick. They won't let you send it back in for a period of time after a removal order. You can't just send it right back in. So, oh my goodness, thousands of dollars, and you're losing your bestseller rank while you're waiting to restock. I mean, what a disaster. So to me, that's like the big scary disaster one that people think they can work around, that not so much.
Well, because I mean, in the old days, 1,000 years ago, I traveled all around the land talking about how you can and cannot ask for product reviews, because I worked for Ecom Engine and we have the Feedback 5 tool, and that tool has always been meant to help you stay compliant when asking for seller feedback and for product reviews, customer reviews. But I would say there are many places in Amazon you need to go to look to make sure you're staying compliant, and these rules change often. So bookmark these pages in Seller Central because it can change. I mean, I remember I called 2016 ReviewGate because prior to that, you could say, hey, leave me a product review. Here's a free product. Leave a product review. And as long as the person said, I received this at a discount or for free for my honest opinion, it was fine. And there were whole companies that were built around that model. And then Amazon said, no more incentivized reviews, that we're done. And it changed the game completely. And then we saw buyer-seller messaging. All of a sudden, there were huge restrictions. People were getting suspended from buyer-seller messaging or restricted from buyer-seller messaging because they said the wrong thing. And it was word combinations that if you like it, please leave a review. If not, please contact our customer service department. And now, I mean, I think if I'm not completely out of touch, the only really good way to ask for a review is through the request a review button that's in the order details page. And you can automate that with a tool like Feedback5, and you can exclude certain ASINs and that kind of stuff, and you can give it some intelligence around how you do that and not have to go in and click that button every single order you have. But I mean, definitely it's harder to get, but there's been so much review manipulation too that I don't know. I wish that there was a better way, but are you seeing reviews abuse suspensions too?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Lauren, do you want to talk some about what she was saying about what it's safe to do? Because this is one of Lauren's areas of expertise.
Excellent.
So when you have these program management teams, they need to fight for funding. And one of the ways they show their value is by doing a downstream impact study on the kind of activities that they focus their enforcement around. And in doing so, they are able to quantify how much money Amazon loses in terms of the lifespan of a customer or the purchasing power of a customer over a given period of time if they experience those events. And so, as you can imagine, things like inauthentic, or even things like getting something that's conditionally different, something that's in a worse condition than you purchase it, is going to have an impact on a buyer. And those studies are run all the time. They're run repetitively because buyer behavior does change based on things that are in politics, in the news. And so being able to focus on just one thing or the other as kind of the penultimate thing to avoid is going to change by season, by week, by news cycle. So I think it's really, really important for sellers to be on top of kind of Amazon chatter. If there is something that Amazon is being accused of not policing well, of big trends in fraud, or buyers feeling like they're victims of fraud on Amazon, or even just bad seller behavior, that's where you need to keep your account and your team so clean that you don't want to draw any suspicion, because as soon as Amazon rolls out these enforcement programs, there's going to be a false positive metric that they're going to be comfortable with. So I remember rolling out a program where Amazon said, oh, in our beta testing, it had a 30% false positive rate, which means that we suspended 30% of sellers with this automation that should never have been suspended. And so they were okay with that. So just know that if these are new trends, you don't want to be part of that delta. You want to be so squeaky clean that even the bots that are making mistakes can't catch you.
Gosh, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we do have a question about what does a review abuse suspension notification say typically? And I think that's germane to what you were saying, Lauren, because there's all this going on within Amazon with them trying to get it right in terms of how they're monitoring accounts. But then there's a really, I think, huge disconnect with the communication a seller gets about a policy they violated and what the steps are to resolve the problem. And I know that Amazon, this is another question, Amazon has introduced this whole, I can't remember what it's called, but basically if you're in trouble, they'll let you know and they give you a certain amount of time to work it out with them, prior to the account actually getting suspended. So I guess this is like a 4-pronged question, is like what typically the wording in a reviews abuse communication from Amazon, what's up with that promise that you're not going to get suspended unless you don't work it out with Amazon ahead of time? And how does a seller, so just 3, how does a seller interpret a communication from Amazon so that they can take the right steps forward?
So there's 3 different what we call blurbs that Amazon uses for review abuse. You could get one that's very pointed that says, we believe that you have violated our reviews policy. They won't tell you exactly what you've done. Amazon wants you to audit your own business and make that determination for yourself. It shows the self-awareness of being able to run your business and being able to self-identify violations of Amazon policy, which is something that's very important to their enforcement teams. The second one we see is platform manipulation, which is a lot more broad. They'll just say, hey, you violated the platform rules in some way. Again, not super helpful. Or you can see what we call the COC, kind of blurb of death, which is just, you have violated section 3. Good luck to you in figuring out what we think you did. So those are fun. We don't
Yeah.
typically see these applicable for account health assurance. Typically, these are surprise shutdowns. So things like order defect rate, a bucket of defects, say intellectual property spikes, oftentimes they'll allow you to work those out. But in our experience and what we've received, and that's going to limit my data set and what I can let you know, but and the people that have come to Riverbend, it's been a out of the blue surprise.
That's delightful, isn't it?
It is.
We have, okay, so let's switch gears for a second because we've got Nieta from Superberries on here. You guys know her. So she says, thank you for helping them with their ungating a few years ago. Now they've got another problem, and I'm going to send that to you guys directly, unless you say not to, Miss Nieta. But anybody that's got an actual, I don't want to disclose your name and your brand name and then say exactly what problem you're having on a recorded webinar. So I'll send this to the team at Riverbend and they will help you out. We have another question about transparency. Do you guys work with transparency?
Yes.
So this person shipped 6, 2 of them had an issue. One customer complained that it was not authentic, which was not true. One order was shipped without it being uploaded, their mistake. Now this has caused a stir within their account, and the worst part was they wanted an invoice from within 180 days and they didn't have one because they had so much stock during COVID. So their account health has suffered because of this. And they find it difficult to believe that the Amazon team wouldn't work with us to understand their situation about the invoice, especially for a seller who has been selling for so long. So that's obviously I'm not even going to say, but I got a ticket for having my phone in my hand. I live in West Virginia and they're really cracking down. I mean, my map was up and I wasn't looking at my phone. I wasn't reading anything on my phone. It was just my map was up to tell me where to go because I moved here and I don't drive because I work at home all day. Anyway, I'm guilty because I have my phone in my hand, but there were circumstances. But do I argue that or do I just pay the fine or what? It's kind of the same thing in that, I mean, you know that you didn't upload it, but surely there's a way to come back from that and a way to make somebody understand. How would you guys deal with this situation?
That's when
So
go ahead.
I was going to ask Kate if she wanted to talk about the 180 days, because I know this is something she guides our consultants a lot on working with their clients on this particular issue. Oh, I can't hear you, Kate.
Oh,
Okay, try
can you hear
again.
me
Just
now?
talk slow. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so this is something we see a lot with our clients just because of, like you said, during COVID, everybody built up a lot of inventory and unfortunately we're unable to get rid of a lot of it. And so a lot of invoices are now dated past that 180-day threshold. And so what we recommend a lot to our clients is that they explain to us in thorough detail about why, like you explained during COVID, they had extra inventory left. And then we use that opportunity to explain it to Amazon during their appeal process. And then we walk our clients through and explain to them the better inventory management systems for moving forward, how they can buy less stock and make sure that those invoices stay dated within that 180-day threshold moving forward, so it's not a continuous problem.
But Amazon will take the explanation, but a lot of times we have to escalate that to an executive because the frontline seller support or seller performance person does not feel empowered to accept an invoice that is outside the SOP, and their SOP says 180 days, so too bad for you. So we'll escalate that to executive seller relations or another executive who has common sense. That team is a little more empowered to not just stick to the SOP and will accept them as long as they look like reasonable invoices. Now, as to transparency, so transparency has problems and everybody knows it. And one of the problems is, let's say that a brand purchases transparency because you have to buy this. It's something that you pay to be in the transparency program, and people have to buy the little 2D barcodes to go on their inventory. Well, say that you enroll your brand in transparency and there's a seller who actually has inventory on the way to the fulfillment center or already in the fulfillment center. common sense, you implement this and you would grandfather all that inventory and say, that's not required, but anything after this date has to have the 2D barcode. That doesn't happen. And so we've had many sellers who Amazon has accused them of counterfeit items in the FCs that were there before the enrollment and transparency or were on the way. So the first thing I would do for those units is check the dates and see if it's possible that they were already in and you weren't required, because it tells you when you create the shipment, this requires transparency 2D barcodes. Check with your team and see if that wasn't required, and you can appeal based on that, because they can look back and see the date that transparency was enrolled and the date you sent in that inventory. And I know that seems like such a stupid solution, but the majority of the time that we have this problem, that's what it was.
Yeah, there are some problems with transparency. I think I mean, the concept of the program is a really good concept. It's just that it's an execution problem, but that's back to the.
She just described Amazon. The concept was great, but there was an execution.
That darn Delta, you know. I mean. I get a lot of questions. I've got a couple questions here now, and I get a lot of questions customarily from brands about ASIN variations and what are appropriate variations and what are not appropriate variations. For instance, I was working with a brand that basically had every single ASIN they had in a parent-child relationship, which I know that people have done in the past to manipulate the review situation, right? So you introduce a child under a parent so that you can take advantage of the amount of reviews that parent has. What are you seeing? Is there an enormous crackdown happening right now? Because I have several brands that I work with that their ASINs are like being questioned, their parentage is being questioned. It's like Maury Povich, but for Amazon. So what are you guys seeing in that space, and what are some best practices when you're setting up your parentages to make sure that you're staying in compliance with Amazon?
So the most important thing I would say, and the thing that we see the most often as being a problem for these variation violations, is the variation theme. So each particular product category in which you can sell a variation have different themes available. And a variation theme would be like size or color, like if your t-shirts all vary based on the color of them, or the size, or both sometimes, or scent if it's a candle. It's very important that you are aware of and abide by that the available themes within the category, and you use them appropriately. Meaning if you select size, that those products actually do vary by size, and you don't select size and then they're actually sent, but you just have the sizes labeled as scents, and so it works. We got the detail page up, it's fine. It's not fine. Amazon will find it, and then you will eventually, unfortunately, receive a violation. Even if you are using the theme that's appropriate for that category, but you have it labeled incorrectly, like the example I just used, where you select size and you label everything as scent. And even if scent is an available option for that category, but you're doing it labeled incorrectly, you can receive a violation for that as well. So it's very important to make sure that you're labeling them correctly, using them appropriately, and you're using ones that are available only for your category. You can find that on the Valid Values tab in your Excel file, or you can find it in the product style guides that are available to you by download via Seller Central Help.
No, that's super easy to read and understand, right?
No, no, it's not at all. I always tell my clients, so I have a background in catalog management, and I received that working at Amazon. And the way that they train you is they have you do a 6-week course where you sit in a classroom with 30 other associates that are worth these for 6 weeks, 40 hours a week, solid. Sit in these classrooms to work and understand feeds and how to use them and how to apply them. And then they expect sellers to do it after watching a 3-minute video. So I think it's extremely unfair, and it definitely makes sense why there are people like us around that help get sellers through situations like this, because the amount of training that they offer is almost laughable on how appropriate it is for you guys, because you really do need more support there.
Oh, this is a good question. Okay, so now let's talk about, okay, we talked about product detail page, you know, so I mean, you're entering your product, you're writing your description, you're creating your bullet points. What are the particular question is, should I go through descriptions and make sure they are adhering to best practices for Amazon descriptions? Yes, you should. I can answer that one for you. But what are some crucial mistakes you can make on your PDP that can put your listing in trouble?
So
Kate?
the ones I see most often, yeah, definitely are seller-specific information on detail pages. You never want to include anything that's specific to your own seller account. No specials, no free shipping, situations like that. Those can easily get you a violation. Another one I see is where sellers are not reviewing the style guides for their categories. So Amazon has very specific rules for each category as far as how they want your title to display, how they want your descriptions to display, things that you are or are not allowed to say within your bullet points. And those are all category specific. So what you might be allowed to be doing in apparel is totally different than what you may or may not be allowed to do for toys. So it's always really important to go ahead and review those for each specific product category, and then to do those at least at minimum annually, because they do update. Amazon does go through those on a regular basis and review them and change them, like many of their other policies. So it's important to stay up to date and have somebody, if not yourself or somebody on your team, go through and download those at least once a year at the minimum.
Pro tip.
Another thing we see frequently is using other people's copyrighted terms or copyrighted photos. That's probably the most common thing that will get your whole listing taken down, not just a warning. So the stuff Kate's talking about, Amazon is a little more kind a lot of times, that they will give you warnings. And if you pay attention to your warnings, which a lot of sellers don't, and you go in and fix them, you're going to be okay. But if you're using other people's copyrighted photos, copyrighted names, terms, brands, and even in the back end keywords, y'all. So if you don't own the term, don't put it in the back end keywords either. That is a copyright violation.
Also, oh, sorry, another big bucket that we see is using health claims, treatment claims, disease claims and cures, as well as pesticide claims. So it's very, very important that when you are, especially if you're listing in HPC, if you're listing in the supplement categories, that you are avoiding anything that claims that it treats or prevents any diseases. It's also very important that you, if in almost any category, because we see this from everything from lawn care to apparel, that you're avoiding pesticide claims.
Well, and I mean, when Amazon tries to help you, because like when you go and you create your listing, you're waiting for it to be approved. If you make any claims about curing diseases, a lot of times they'll kick it back to you and say, you can't say that. And they'll put it in red, or they'll make it very clear, this part right here is the part we have a problem with. But if you have a super, super old listing with a PDP that you put together forever ago, it might just now be getting around to, getting dinged with that. And the longer it's been up, the more you've sold and the more damaging it can be. So that audit that you do and the review of the rules, I think that Kate brought up is super important. But yeah, I remember talking to a supplement brand a couple months ago and they said, I can't get my listing approved. And I said, well, what are they kicking back to you? Oh, I just keep submitting it over and over again. And I'm like, no, you got to correct the things that it doesn't like or it's not going to go through. Because that's an important thing you brought up, Leslie, is that Amazon in your Seller Central account, they will most of the time notify you if there's something wrong. So like if your ODR is in trouble, if there are all these different, you've got account health, right? But you've also got like in inventory, you can see if you've got stranded inventory, which goes into your IPI. You have to really understand your Seller Central and know where to look, because that's how Amazon talks to you as a seller. So if you're ignoring those notifications, or they even now give you opportunities, usually it's try to get you to spend more money on advertising, but they'll also tell you when you can improve your listing or when you could maybe try a different ad type where you would be spending more money, but it could produce a lift in your sales. So pay attention to what they're telling you in Seller Central, because correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, but by the time you get an email, it might be too late. But those notifications you have in Seller Central, that's your way to not get the emails from Amazon saying that you've done something wrong.
Well, there's really 3 places in Seller Central now that most people ignore, that you can find the data to keep your ASINs live and to keep your account healthy. One, as you mentioned, is stranded inventory, because sometimes you may not have noticed the email or may not have even received one for like restricted products, but it's gone into stranded inventory. So you can look and see I've got a problem. The other is voice of the customer. A lot of people ignore voice of the customer because when it started out, it was terrible, like the way the data came in, and now it's still bad, but it's better because there's all these false positives in there. Like someone says, I accidentally ordered the wrong thing, just like in a returns report, but it puts your product in the pink. It's supposed to be red, but it's pink. You know, or it says it's one of your worst products, and you're like, no, it's not. It's because, you know, but I've had clients who didn't notice there were valid comments in there about bad packaging, or like my favorite example is someone was selling a shampoo conditioner bundle, and their warehouse was sending out 2 shampoos and 2 conditioners under the same ASIN. And if they looked at voice of the customer, they would have seen that instantly. And then the third place to look is the account health dashboard. And real quick, because you mentioned this as one of the first questions, and then we kind of glossed over it, is the account health rating. That's this new thing where Amazon claims they're going to be sweet and gentle with you. And so there's this crazy score scale, and I love to bring up the scale because it's so Amazon. The scale is 0 to 1,000 points. And if you're 200 to 1,000, you're okay. And I don't know on what planet you have like 80% of the points, you're okay. It's very strange. But if you're 100 to 200, you're at risk. And if you're 100 or below, you're either suspended or you're about to be. The difference between 200 and 1,000, people always want to know, how do I get 1,000? It's usually based on volume. If you're a low volume seller, you're never getting above 300, 350. It's just not going to happen. So you're okay if you're above 200. A low volume seller might be right at 200 just based on volume. So what happens is when you get a violation, it can be anything. It can be bad reviews on an ASIN. It can be ASINs taken down for restricted products or inauthentic or any of the reasons. Anything they don't like in your account, it can affect your score and make your score go down. The challenge right now is that they have this whole substructure they created that says high impact, low impact, critical impact, no impact. And so you would think you could directly tie those to your score going up and down, but you kind of can't. And so, and also some of the things I consider a critical event or critical impact, they don't. Like, I think counterfeit's really bad. And we've seen some that say counterfeit, no impact. In what planet is counterfeit, no impact? And then there's others where it's like something that's conditioned, high impact. What? But my point being, you can't just rely on this and say, oh, I'm above 200. I'm going to ignore these ASIN issues. I'm good. We've had clients who had really great scores, really good scores, 600, 700, nice, healthy. And then they have one lawyer file like 5 or 6 IP complaints against them for one brand that they're selling, and all of a sudden they're under 200 and they're at risk. So used to, I would give advice, and I don't know if Lauren and Kate would agree with it, but used to I would give advice like people would say, do I have to appeal every ASIN? And I'd say no. You know, if you're never going to sell this again and you're generally healthy and you haven't had many complaints, just delete those from your account, never sell them again, you're good. Now you can't do that. You literally have to appeal every dang ASIN, because if you don't, it could come back to haunt you.
What a wonderful segue into the wonderful article you wrote. I'm going to pop a link in the chat to a blog post titled "The New Amazon Account Health Reality: Appeal Every Suspended ASIN," where you can find out even more about what Leslie just said. That worked out so well. I'll also include that in the replay email that we're going to send to all of you, but that's an important blog post that you should read. Gosh, what am I?
Sorry, I ranted so much that you're just totally thrown now.
No, I was just really excited because it was the perfect time to pop out that blog post. You know, I think that overall, though, having metrics for account health, having metrics for inventory performance, that's all good because it at least gives you a baseline that you need to adhere to, and at least gives you some sort of idea how you're doing. And I mean, in the old days, none of that existed, right? I mean, I remember when Amazon rolled out the Inventory Performance Index and everybody was like, oh, clutching their pearls. But they said, look, we have to have some sort of rules and some sort of metrics around this because people are sending in. I think the example the Amazon guy used at Boost in 2018 was, we don't want you sending in Easter egg cookie cutters right at Q4. You know, we're not a storage facility, we're a fulfillment facility. So we want it in, we want it out. So we want, our metrics are going to reflect that and how you're doing with how we want you to use FBA. So it makes sense. It makes sense to have metrics, but you can't rely completely on those metrics. Emma asks, I would love to hear your thoughts on the seller verification process. One of the brands my company is partnered with has completed this twice, receiving approval both times, yet Amazon is requiring they complete this a third time and has limited the account selling ability.
This workflow is so broken. So Amazon obviously scrambled to try and be in compliance with the new Inform Act that's rolling out, which I believe goes into effect on the 27th of June. And I can tell you from experience that this, the poor engineers that had to roll this out in what feels like 72 hours only having been fed a donut. It's just remarkable how variable this process has been just in the last week. I've walked through the workflows as screen sharing with multiple clients, and it seems like it changes hourly. So they know it's glitchy. They understand that there is not manpower to do a manual review of all this documentation. And so it's very likely that they're getting a tacit approval. And then during audits, somewhere in the documentation, either by human error or program error in what they were requiring, or human error on Amazon's side, they're needing to go back through this process. I've also seen several people be rebatched for verification multiple times. And then when they go into verification, there's nothing to fill out. All of their information is still auto-populated and cannot be changed. So all they have to do is hit submit. So it's technical growing pains on Amazon's end, to the best of my knowledge. And it's been very evident that they've been working on this around the clock to try and be in compliance, and they're fumbling the ball a little bit, but you can tell that there's a lot of effort to try and get it right.
So I've got to throw in two things. First of all, I did the verification on my own seller account yesterday, and I cannot overstate how disappointing it is that you submit the documents they ask you to. I have every single document, everything matches, you know, I mean, come on, I own Riverbend. You really think I wouldn't match, right? So I submit everything and it still says your account is at risk of deactivation. And there is nothing you can click or do. And there's these radio buttons as though you're supposed to submit additional things. There's a list of things and you can't, they're grayed out. And to cause panic for sellers, because it still says 24 hours later, you're at risk of deactivation when you've done everything you're supposed to do and you're buttoned up. That is so disappointing. I can't even express it. And then secondly, if they've actually limited your selling ability, yeah, that's an escalation to me. I know that they are overwhelmed right now at the document review level, but I would send that to executive seller relations or some other group at Amazon and say, I've complied with the Inform Act. I've sent you all the documents within 10 days. You've already approved us twice, and now you've limited my selling ability. This isn't right. That's not what the law was intended to do, yada, yada. And I would push that up the ladder because that's not right. Also, if enough sellers that this happens to push it up the ladder, there will be even more pressure to throw more resources to the engineering team. I mean, heck, let's get some AWS people over there working. This is a nightmare.
Wow, stressful. Oh, Keith wants to know how much for the cat, Kate.
Free. You can have her because she's just being so helpful. She's been stomping through the video the whole time.
I love it when the pets, I don't have any pets, but I will have goats one day and I will make sure goats are in all my videos.
Nice.
Please, thank you.
I will mute the goat. Rich asks, as a seller that has a lot of IP violations from knockoff listings, how do we know if a listing is using trademark name in their search terms? So he's on the people are knocking off my product side of things, but he wants to know if he can identify listings that have his brand name in their search terms, in their backend search terms, I guess is what he's probably asking. Is there any way to find that out?
Right. So a lot of the software out there, and I'm not remembering the feature of the one that I was looking at, but a lot of the software out there that you can buy that you use for scouting and such, they have scraping features where you can scrape a listing and you can pull all the back end keywords. So if you check out like the Jungle Scouts and Helium 10s of the world, those types of software programs, they can scrape and pull all the text out of the back end of the listing. Also, some of the IP protection software out there does the exact same thing.
That's cool. Oh, this is a great question. And this is sort of like taking it back high level again, but has Amazon reinstated an account more than once? So if you get suspended once and then you get suspended again, can you get reinstated? And is it harder the second, third, fourth times? How many times?
Depends on what you've been suspended for in the past and what you're suspended for now. So Amazon doesn't like recidivism. They don't want to see you commit the same quote unquote violations, whether justified or not, over and over. But yes, if you're suspended for late shipment rate one time and then the next time for intellectual property and then the next time for condition issues, Amazon doesn't consider that to be recidivism. Those are unique and individual suspension events.
That's very helpful, Lauren. I was just thinking about back to my ticket situation. Like I basically pled out. And if I don't get in trouble, if I don't get it in 6 months, then it's like it never happened. So is it like that with Amazon where the old one goes away, or does the new suspension, do they look at that old suspension and say, okay, yeah, we don't, I mean, like how automated is that? And do you have a rap sheet with Amazon?
Oh, Amazon doesn't forget, that's for sure. And if you are, say, suspended for the same infraction twice, what they're going to do is look at your old appeal and see what your remedies were, and then look at your new appeal and see, is this the same appeal? Does this identify the same problem? Does it identify a new problem? Do you have new processes in place? Because obviously, if you say that you're going to follow the same steps you did in your last reinstatement, they're not working. So Amazon, it's unlikely to accept them for this new appeal.
They are mostly looking at the data from the last 180 days, but that doesn't mean they won't look back forever and ever. And there is an exception on the how many times can I get reinstated, which is the platform manipulation, review manipulation, BSR manipulation world. That is 2 strikes and you're out, not 3, just 2. So if you get suspended because like one of our clients, your great aunt's book club all left reviews for your product, and so they think you're paying friends and family for reviews, you better not get caught again, because if you get caught a second time, you are not coming back and nobody can help you.
Do you know that I don't leave product reviews, and I wish I could, but I've been in the space for so long, I'm just afraid. I'm afraid that my review would hurt more than it helped. So even though I buy from brands that I don't necessarily work with, though I do try to buy from brands that I work with, because that's super fun. I have a funny story about that too. But if we have time, I'll get to that. But yeah, I'm afraid to leave reviews.
I buy from clients all the time, and I never, ever leave reviews, ever.
When they'll say, leave a review, and I'll say, you don't want me to do that.
No, we're linked to too many accounts and people, and it could look skeezy, and we have a personal relationship, and anyone you have a personal relationship with, you just don't want them to leave you a review. Sounds awful, but it's true.
Okay, so we have a third-party reseller, and they have a brand that was 1P, and now they're coming to us, and Amazon is gating a few of their ASINs and aren't allowing them to sell on them. Any advice on this? I guess ask please, pretty please.
Oh, Amazon. Okay, so third-party reseller, they're buying directly from the brand, it sounds like.
Ethan, if you want to clarify that, we could probably give a better answer. So the brand that was 1P.
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you what. what can be problematic is if, and this may or may not be the case, if this reseller who's buying from the brand, if they have brand registry, because the rule is, it's not really a rule, it's an unwritten rule that you can sell hybrid on Amazon, meaning you can sell 3P and 1P if you don't cross the same ASINs. So if you're a brand and you're selling 1P, great example is there's a baby company. They sell all their mattresses and furniture 1P because it's all really big and heavy, and 3P, the fees would eat them alive. But then they also sell bedding and cute little lamps and things, and they sell all of those 3P because they make more money. Amazon pretty much leaves them alone and lets them do the thing. Amazon does not love leaving 1P for 3P, so sometimes they give brands a really hard time. And if that brand is enabling the sale of one ASIN, 3P and 1P, Amazon will strike against them any way they can. So if they believe you have a relationship with this brand and that they're using you, they're gonna be a pain in the behind until that same ASIN is sold out on the 1P side for some time. Lauren, do you have anything to add, or does that sound right to you?
Without knowing why their gating applications are being denied, it's hard to give a little bit more targeted advice. But just making sure that invoices that you provide to them are clear, readable, and meet all the criteria that Amazon is asking for, and that criteria can be variable based on the brand, the particular ASIN, the reason why it's gated, or your specific Amazon history. There are lots of times when, especially with a new Amazon account, if you do not have 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months of solid selling history in the same category as that product, you simply are not eligible to be approved, period.
Remember when you could just go to Rite Aid and go to the end cap and scan stuff with your seller app and just ship it in to FBA, and it didn't matter about brand or anything? I mean, I guess it's better now and it's better for brands, but remember that? I remember that.
It was fun.
It was fun. You're just never going to find it again for that price. So you just have all these, yeah, it's just jumping on other people's listings. Oh, Emma asked, how do I get a hold of executive seller relations? Do I just escalate my case with that request, or is there a different process to get to executive seller relations?
Okay, so here's where we give you the magic, super secret, double secret handshake information. Executive seller relations used to be its own email and its own department. And now instead, you just need to know the magic way in. You're actually going to send an email to Jeff at Amazon. Jeff is no longer at Amazon. He's not reading his emails. They're all going to executive seller relations. So Jeff at Amazon.com, and then you need them to know that you know, so that they know you know they know you know. So you say, dear executive seller relations, you don't say dear Jeff. And then somewhere in your first couple of sentences, you need to include your A number, your token that identifies your store so that they can look it up easily. If you do those 3 things, send it to Jeff, dear executive seller relations, and include your A number, then keep it very short, bullet pointed. You need to say what the problem is, what you've done to fix it, and then your clear ask of what you think will solve it. Those 3 things. That team is really awesome. A lot of folks aren't emailing Jeff anymore because they know he's not there. So there's some magic to sending it the right way to that team. They're very responsive.
That is a super big secret. Yeah, because I mean, what everybody's saying is, oh, that just doesn't work anymore or whatever. So no, so don't say, dear Jeff, congratulations on your upcoming nuptials. Instead, what Leslie, that's gonna get you in front of the right people. Oh gosh, yeah.
I do find it important to add that the team that reviews those, the executive seller relations team, as well as seller performance and seller support, they have at most 4 minutes to review your case with the performance metrics that they have to uphold to keep their job going and stay in good performance review. They have 4 minutes to read, review, and approve or deny your case. And I think, and I would assume that Leslie and Lauren would agree, that a lot of the denials that we see come through from ESR or other performance agencies at Amazon is due to the fact that these appeals are too wordy, not direct and to the point, and are not easily approved. You always want to do as much of the footwork as you can possibly do for those ESR agents. So that way they just have to read the facts and click approve. That's going to be the faster work for them and therefore the faster approval for you.
That's a great point. You need to be concise and clear to the point, get it, above the fold, if you will. Most
Yeah, I have
important.
seen it in action many times where people will deny cases simply because it's too much work and they don't have the time.
TLDR.
Yeah, TLDR, you're denied.
Keith asked, if we know we shipped 600 pieces with all labeling correct, whereas Amazon says we missed 28 pieces, is it best to dispute it? What's Amazon's angle on that? For FBA.
Amazon.
I guess FBA is missing 28 pieces and Amazon's saying it's Keith's fault, but Keith's saying it's not because he shipped all 600 pieces.
So is he saying Amazon's just saying they didn't label it, or that they're missing 28 units?
I think that they missed labeling on 28 pieces.
They
Amazon
missed
saying,
labeling on it?
yeah.
Yes, sure he did. It seemed just randomly just didn't label. I totally believe that. Okay, so most of the time on these, all they want you to do is accept it. Fighting back, okay, they're going to charge you, how much is labeling service? 15 cents? Is it 15 cents a label? They're going to charge you a fee for those. The success rate that I've seen on a case that's about that small number of labels, it's not worth the time to me. Now, if you are having repetitive issues with FBA where you could lose your inbound FBA privileges because they keep pegging you for these things, yes, you're going to have to fight back. But most of the time, they're not going to investigate this because they've already transshipped to the inventory. So what are they going to do? A bin check and like see if the labels match? I mean, they're just not, they don't care.
So pay the 15 cents per piece, 15 cents times 28. It's a bummer though, but if they'll just do it for you but I mean, if it keeps, yeah, again, if it keeps happening over and over again, then you need to get to the bottom of that.
And do not say, fine, then I'll let them label my stuff. Don't ever use their labeling service. It's terrible. The quality is terrible. They put the wrong labels on stuff all the time. They will not label your variations correctly and they overcharge. Not that I have a strong opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Emma, I might need you to clarify this question. She asks, how can you tell what users in brand registry have been engaging in abusive conduct? So I think, Emma, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what she means is, what are some shady things that people are doing in brand registry in particular?
Okay, so one thing that I see quite often is brand registered sellers will register for a brand and then begin their brand normalization process. And that's where they go out and grab all these ASINs that are supposedly part of their brand and then rebrand them with that new brand and their new brand registry power and then take them over. And then those ASINs sometimes, not always, are included in their brand in true actuality. And then other sellers that are on those listings are then knocked off and have no power to correct any of the actions that have been made on that listing because they don't have brand registry for it. Yeah, we see that one fairly often.
It's a hijacking, yeah.
It's used as hijacking, unfortunately. Or I'm trying to think of other examples of brand registry powers being used for bad.
So some people over-report for intellectual property. So they will report anyone on their listing, even if the person is selling valid inventory. They didn't do a test buy. They're just saying, this is counterfeit, this is counterfeit, this is trademark abuse, this is trademark abuse, when it really is the right product. And one reason Emma might be asking is because there are brands and law firms, legit law firms, that have had their brand registry suspended because Amazon has said they are being abusive, and that's the word that they use. And so here is something really concerning to me. It appears, so there's this spider web created by brand registries. So let's say everyone on this, all four of us on this screen, we each are resellers that have been granted some kind of brand registry access by two brands. And then we're connected to other brands, and then they're connected to other brands, and there's other resellers who actually have the same access we do, right? So if there's a bad actor in that web, it seems to be affecting the web, even though we do not collude on anything. So if Liz goes out and fake reports everybody, it could hurt Lauren and Kate and me, even though we didn't do the thing. That's not really how it's supposed to work, I don't think. I'm wondering if they didn't consider that when they built it. That would be so shocking for Amazon. But we think that is what is happening sometimes, is that sellers are being told they're abusive, and they honest to God aren't. Sometimes it's agencies and they are not being abusive, but then someone out there is, and they are getting linked to them, just like weird linked accounts, just like weird linked seller accounts where you're like, I'm not linked to anybody, but there's a linkage that you didn't intend.
Wow. So yeah, that's what it sounds like. Emma clarified, and she said that we've been receiving flags for specific emails stating that the email has been abusive despite there not being any visible flags. So some of the brands have had their brand registry account revoked due to misconduct, and we can't figure out where or how this was done as the performance notification isn't clear. So it sounds like that it's somewhere in the web. So the owner of brand registry has granted some sort of access to someone who did something bad, and now everybody suffers for it. So don't do anything bad.
These are super complex, and all I can really say on the fly is call us, because that is these are not easy. These are not like where we can give a pat answer or an easy response.
Yeah.
These are very tough cases that take a lot of time and escalation.
Yeah, so Emma, if it's okay with you, I'm going to give your contact information to the team here, and they'll reach out and tell you how to handle this, because that's complicated and it's going to take a lot of research. We're coming up at time. This has been so fun. So we're going to do a couple things. One, we're going to send out this replay to you if you've registered for this. So if you missed it and you have questions, and I'm sure you will, you wanted to ask anything and then you couldn't come today. So bummer, but it's not too late, because you can submit your questions over to me and I will forward them on to the team at Riverbend, or you can reach out to Riverbend directly, because their contact information will also be in the replay email. So watch out for that replay email. It's probably coming to you today. And thank you to Leslie, Lauren, and Kate for all of your insight and this fun day that we've had. I'm sad that it's over.
Thank you so much, Liz. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, and you guys, Prime Day is coming up, Q4 is coming up. It is not the time to get an ASIN suspended or get your account suspended. So follow all the advice you got here. Try not to have to use Dear Jeff because he's not there, but you just don't get in a situation where you need to appeal anything or do anything. Just make sure everything's on the up and up, and that way you can have really successful key selling periods. Okay. Thanks, everybody.